It's pretty easy to tell when people are disinterested in us. And sometimes we can cloud our judgment when people are showing disinterest. Sometimes we like people enough for both of us. If their behavior is contrary to somebody who likes you, if they're shooing you off to other men or women, if they are not making any plans, I think pretty much the writing is on the wall. They really are not that into you. This is what you're going to do. If you want to appear on this cast, you're going to have a very nice, clean background. Record yourself on high definition video and ask your question while happy or sad, or both are welcome. Then you're going to send me that video. If you prefer that I blind for some reason, you're more than welcome to just send a voice note and say, "Hi Eric, this is itching. I don't want my face to be seen, hide my ID, but this is my question." And guess what? I will do my very best to go through all the questions and answer as many questions as I possibly can. Okay? Yeah, and then I'm looking forward to reading and hearing some of the questions you might have. Go right ahead. I'm waiting for you.
Hi Eric, my name is Namayan Tito. I have one question for you. Why do guys ghost? Why do people just disappear? Someone stop talking to you, whether it's a friend, a girlfriend, your boyfriend, why do people just disappear? Thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you so much for that question. How can you tell when a guy is simply uninterested? It sounds so simple, but it isn't. I've personally had this experience. So I knew a lady, very kind lady, very, very good, very warm, very amiable, but she just wasn't meant for me. Have you ever been in that situation where somebody has not done you no wrong? They really like you, you can feel it, they're sending you good vibes. But to be honest, you've looked at them in all angles, okay? But you just don't, there is no reciprocity in terms of how you feel about them. And I remember this lady would call me, she'd start by texting me in the morning, "Good morning, I hope you slept well." And then at noontime, "Have you had lunch?" And then in the evening, "I'm leaving work now, what are you up to?" And I was just like, if I get another text, I'm going to bust. But you can't tell them that because you're a nice person. And so this went on for a while. And I decided that, it was wiser to probably meet them, sit them down, and share with them genuinely how I felt. And so we went and met some place, and I said, "Look, I may be wrong. If my reading is wrong, you're more than welcome to correct me. But I sense that you're sending me signals that, you like me a little more than a friend. Or do you call all of your friends and wish them good morning, good night, and good afternoon, and happy napping?" And she said, "No, absolutely not. You are right. Your reading is right. I sort of like you, and I was wondering when you're going to, come around and say whatever it is you want." And so I said, to be very honest, at the present moment in my life, I am not in a place where I am happy or willing to commit in a relationship. But the truth of the matter is, I was completely disinterested in the person. But again, the truth without kindness is cruelty, right? You can't start telling somebody the way it is raw. Are you one of those people who say things the way they are? Like, no, me, I just tell you. Totally, I will tell you. I don't want you. No. It's possible to tell a truth, but you lace it with a lot of kindness. It doesn't mean you lie, but I didn't want to be cruel. And so after we had that conversation, I thought, okay, she got the hint. She's not going to text me again. Maybe once in a while is fine. She'll back off. But right off the bat, the text continued. "Hi, good morning. How are you?" And so I took the matter to some of my friends and I said, "Look, guys, this is becoming infuriating." And one of my friends said, "Why don't you ghost her?" You should ghost her. And I thought to myself, I don't know if ghosting is a good idea. But this went on for a couple of weeks. But the point I'm trying to make is this. It's pretty easy to tell when people are disinterested in us. And sometimes we can cloud our judgment when people are showing disinterest. Sometimes we like people enough for both of us, and we become so blind to their not liking us back. Have you ever liked somebody that you didn't care? They ignore you for 3 days. You're like, hello, I hope you're okay. I was just checking if you're okay. I heard there were hyenas in manifestation in your area. I hope no hyena touched you. And then they're quiet again. And now you look for another story. I've heard there was hailstorm in your area. This is just to ask if you are safe. Did the hailstorm catch your house? And then if they reply and said, no, I'm safe, thank you for checking, you are excited. You're like, oh my goodness, they replied. They like me, they love me, we have a wedding. So the question is loaded, and sorry I went on a tangent, but the point I was trying to make is sometimes it can be very tough to spot when people are disinterested, especially if we like them a lot. So for me, number one way that a guy is simply uninterested would be their behavior. Their behavior will tell you how they feel about you. Their behavior. Can you imagine it's that simple? Men and women are not complicated. If people like you, you will know. If they don't like you, you will know. Okay? So case in point, you've called them. And for some reason, the conversations are always so short. You know? They'll be like, hey, give me 2 minutes. Let me just shut my fridge. Sorry. Let me close the fridge. I'll call you back. That's right there for you. They're not keen. And then they don't call back 48 days later. They're disinterested. Another way you could tell that they're disinterested is they don't broach any subjects around a plan to meet up. You know, conversations are very peripheral, very surface based. Everything is always, oh, how are you? How is your cat? Your cat is fine. Oh, your cat is fantastic. Ah, okay. The cat has drunk the milk that the cat normally drinks. Okay. The cat has also taken the cat food. The cat is outside playing with other cats. Okay. Did you wash the cat the way you washed the cat the last time you told me you're washing the cat? Okay. So conversations are very surface based. No tangible plans. It's always hi, good night, bye. Hi, good morning, bye. Hi, how are you, bye. So if they're not making any plans, if they're not asking you out, if they're not, or maybe you've asked them out as the example of the lady I gave, and they're not following through to ask you out, that's another sign. The other thing I would say, because we live in the social media age, they don't bother with your socials. You know, you put your beautiful little black dress on, and you're just waiting. You know, when you go to who saw your posts and they are not there. You know, so you put a very nice dress that has snatched your contours and curves, and you're just like, I think they're going to see this. Nothing. They've not looked at your socials. They're not making any comments. You put a very thunderous post. You have beautiful pictures with all of your angles. You're pouting like this. Nothing. Everybody who's seen are your relatives and your girlfriends. And those are the guys who you don't like. Him or her, not there. So that's another sign. I would also say on top of my mind, a healthy tinge of jealousy. You know, I think that can tell a story. If people are jealous about you or about things that concern you, then there's a semblance of having liked you or being interested that is in there. But imagine a guy or a lady who's urging you on. You know, they tell you, oh, by the way, why don't you date John? I think he really likes you. And they always just are shoving you off to people. Or you're telling them a story about how a guy was calling you and was, you know, telling you they're interested. And they're like, oh, which guy? This guy at the office called Patrick. You know, he's so consistent. Like he asked me out, I said no. He asked me the other day out, I said no. This other weekend, there was a company symposium. I said no. But he's always just insisting. And then the guy simply says, why don't you go? If I was you, I would go. Why are you closing yourself off? Chances are they don't like you. Okay? Men are very territorial. At least speaking for majority of men are generally very territorial. And if they're into you, you know, there's a sense of where are you going? Who are you going to be with? What are you doing together? How long is that activity going to take? When are you coming back home? You know, not crazy jealousy like a machete and chasing you down the road. No, I'm not talking about that one. Just a tinge of jealousy can be very indicative that they actually are into you and they're interested. And one other thing is they tell you. If they tell you, okay, if you can't see it in the behavior, maybe they would say that, I've been behaving and giving you mixed signals. Many times people just tell you, they come to you and say, you know what, are you in a relationship? What are you doing this weekend? I like hanging out with you. Would you care to grab coffee? So if they've not told you, if their behavior is contrary to somebody who likes you, if they're shooing you off to other men or women, if they are not making any plans, I think pretty much the writing is on the wall. They really are not that into you. And instead of guessing and second guessing yourself, because time is of the essence, maybe one of the things you want to do is just to ask. Ask. You'll be amazed that maybe the guy is shy. If you just say, it's very interesting. I actually like you, but I sense that you're not giving me the same vibe, or sometimes you give mixed signals. So what do you think we grab coffee and talk about our liking for each other? You might be surprised, because it's often assumed that the chase is left for the man, but now men are changing. Men want to be pursued. Okay? And not all, but some are just painfully shy. And if you said, I was thinking maybe we grab coffee, and you tell them, you say, I feel like you're a personable person and I enjoy talking to you. How do you feel about grabbing coffee one of these fine days? We talk about that. They would just turn around and say, it's interesting you say that. I was wondering how it brought the subject, but, I kind of like you too. Okay. And I'm sort of interested as well. Okay. So that's what I think on top of my mind. What else comes to mind? I would say that they speak to you, to their friends. That is a good sign. If you bump into a friend who says, oh, Gabriel was just telling us about you, like, he's so fond of you. The other day he was saying you went and did this, you passed by the house and you're doing this, that, and the other. That's a good sign. Speaking from a personal level, I've never talked about a woman I didn't like to people who are intimate or important to me. Okay? Because men have these sort of intimate relationships with fellow men. Not the way women would have them, but a man's friend would know if a man was interested in you. Because I would go over and say, hey, you wouldn't believe it, man. John, there's this chick I met. I think she's amazing. But if 6 months in and 1 year in and a couple of months in and it's never ever mentioned you to the friends, it's possible that he's completely uninterested. I hope that helps. None of us is an expert. People are varied. Men are not homogeneous, nor are women. And I was just saying earlier that sometimes it helps if we just ask people plainly. Ask people plainly. Sometimes we have a knack for reading people so much. And there's something psychologists called a frame of reference. What you can be reading as disinterested would be that they are shy. Okay? Or what you can be reading as interest would be that they're friendly. So sometimes the good old way of doing things, just asking, hey, I'm interested. Are you feeling the same way? Can cut you a lot of slack. Okay? But I think if we went back to the basics, if I'm to speak for myself, when I'm interested in somebody, I tend to sort of groom a little. I'd wear some cologne, go get a haircut. If I'm going to meet them, try and wear a nice, decent t-shirt that is showing my triceps and biceps. So I feel like I'm not alone in that field. A lot of times when men are into you, they'll make an effort. They'll make an effort about their appearance. So if somebody comes, and of course, not all men again, but if somebody comes about so drab, like they came out of a pot of lime, like they were baptized in lime juice, their beard is unkempt, and their teeth is catered for, and their eyes are red, and they have bloodshot eyes, and they have these huge, whatever it is, no effort. You're like, hey, do we go for my sister's wedding? And they show up like a scarecrow. It can be indicating that they don't mind you enough, I think. Because I try to make an impression. I try to, maybe I'll go to the gym earlier that day and just pump a few reps so that my arms are swollen. Tsit, tsit, tsit. So I feel like there's a bit of that in there. The other thing I would say is vulnerability. If they can be vulnerable with you, that is very indicating that they are interested in you. If they tell you about important stuff, say some childhood trauma or something they struggled with. For instance, I personally, as Eric, I'm very critical of myself. I was just sharing with a producer here that I'm very critical. So if I misspelled a word or mispronounced a word, or I really go to a corner and I'm like, what's wrong with you? But I'm working on that, okay? Because I'm on the extreme spectrum of perfection, which is not good because none of us is perfect. So if they are open, like I've been now, and said, I'm very critical, it means they look at you as a potential long-term partner, and they like you enough to tell you something very vulnerable about themselves. I don't know if you've met people who are very they're very, I had bread in the morning and I went to work. That's it. Like, you can't go beyond the surface. If you said, what are your thoughts about AI? Nothing. It's AI. What are your thoughts about politics? Nothing. It's politics. How do you feel about love? Nothing. It's love. What have your views about romance? Nothing. It's romance. So if they can't go to their underbelly or show you their underbelly, I think it's a sign that they're quite uninterested, because people tend to open up to people that they really are into. Okay, what do you feel about that? I sense there's something in there, because if I also look at women who I've dated who liked me genuinely, they tend to talk about everything. They say, my sister's pissed me off. She had wanted me to cook and I was from a safari. Can you believe it? And he says, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Or my mom is very judgmental. My mom keeps commenting about my physique and it really upsets me. One time she sat all of my aunties and they were talking about my thighs. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And so I think when people are comfortable with you, they are vulnerable with you like that. Okay? So that's another sign. And then finally, I would say if they don't ask you thoughtful questions, they don't ask you any thoughtful questions. How do you feel about that? How did your mom talking about your thighs make you feel? What did you do when you went and locked yourself in the room? Some follow-up question. They're not like, hey, your mom said your thighs are big, eh? And you look like an auntie. Wah, 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 wah. That would be weird. But if they would ask a follow-up question that is thoughtful, and maybe make recommendations. There's this wonderful book about body positivity that you should read by X, Y, and Z author. Or if they said, even I had, for instance, my mother, when I was an adolescent, this is a true story, used to make comments about how I used to smell to her like a goat. So she'd say, unanuka mbuzi. And I used to feel some type of way. So what I used to do is go and shower, and I would dread passing a corridor where she'd be at. And if, say, I was in a situation where somebody was telling me about how they felt about their thighs being discussed by a baraza of aunties and mom and uncles, then I can offer that story. So there's reciprocity, isn't it? I can offer my mbuzi smell that my mom felt I was smelling as you're sharing about your thighs. So I feel like if there are no thoughtful questions as a follow-up to some of the things that you're very vulnerable about, that could be a sign that they don't care. Okay? That could be a sign that they don't care. Questions about your childhood, questions about your dad being absent for the length of time that he's been absent, questions about being raised by a stepdad, questions about your insecurities. How is it that you felt when you're trying to treat the acne? And what was the most insecure feeling during that time? I couldn't walk straight. I would walk with my head bowed. I didn't leave the house much because I felt very unpretty. And it didn't help that men used to make snide comments about my face at that particular time. That sort of thing. Thoughtfulness. thoughtful questions that can show that they care. I don't care to ask thoughtful questions for people I don't care about. Not that I don't care about them. I mean, I care about them as human beings, but I'm not going to see them 6 weeks down the road. Or I don't plan to do a lifetime with them. So I don't care. I mean, bless your heart, I'll pray for you, but I'm not so bothered that you're chased by a Billy the goat down the road when you're 6. But if I want to do something important with you, then I want to maybe talk to you away from fearing goats. That, those days you are shorter and the goat probably despised you, but now you are tall and you can shoo a goat and you don't have to run away from goats. You get the drift? So thoughtfulness, vulnerability, and also just authenticity and ease with which they are comfortable discussing issues of things that are important to them. Did I mention that they introduce you to their friends and family? I don't think I mentioned that. So if they introduce you to your friends and family, men are very interesting. Men seek approval from other men. They might not own up to it, but if my clique of friends are in approval of the person I am dating, if they don't think she's funny looking or she's indecent, or if they say something like, "Oh my goodness, your girlfriend is very graceful. I met her the other day and she's very, she was dressed well and she spoke to me very well." That is very important to men. So they are validated by other men more than they are by women. Okay? And a way to know that somebody would be interested is, after a little while of talking, they bother to introduce you to their friends. Come over, I'm meeting John for coffee, you can join us. And then they'll say, this is Agnes. And then the next time they'll be like, I'm meeting my sister for lunch. We can do a little shopping and then I introduce you to my sister and then you proceed. So that is a good sign. Okay, I'm very protective of my intimate relationships. Maybe some people are not. But the flip side also is, as Justin Bieber sang and said, my mama doesn't like you, she just likes everyone. So you can't go around saying, I met his mom, imagine. I met his mom. Like, what does that even mean? Maybe culturally, they just introduce everybody to their mothers. I know friends of mine who come from tribes that are very open like that. So you meet them 3 weeks later, come meet my mother. But to me personally, friends and family is where I draw the line. If you're very important to me, then you might meet my friends and then you meet my family. If I'm really interested in you, you'll definitely meet my friends and you'll meet my family. But if I feel like you're just a bridge, you're a person of the season or a moment, then chances are I'm not going to introduce you. Okay? So those, I think, are on top of my mind. But my final word would be this. Life and time is of the essence. You want to try and not complicate your life. Life is already very complicated. It's wiser to go where you are celebrated and shun places where you are tolerated. Okay? There's someone for everyone. There are people who like you for free. They like you for free. Okay? And I think exposing yourself to those spaces brings life to your soul. And if you consistently subject yourself to people and situations that are unbecoming, it diminishes your soul. And it's very gloomy. So I would advise strongly that if people have shown you through their behavior, which was our first point, if they've shown you with their behavior, with their conduct, with their character, that they're totally disinterested, then believe them. Believe them and act accordingly. And then make room, okay? By releasing them, make room for people who are for you. Because there are people who are for you. And that should serve you well. I think in life, as you grow older, you realize that you're not meant for everybody and not everybody is meant for you. So go where you're celebrated, completely avoid